Listen, man, I'm going to tell you like it is. Donald Trump is 100%. Actually, J.D. Vance is the guy who said that Donald Trump is the new Hitler. I don't want to be taking his words, but let's talk about Hitler.
Praises Nazis, calls African countries shithole countries, tells non-white women to go back to the countries they came from, says black people like me more because I got indicted. So you don't cover this stuff. Donald Trump ran for office in 2016 telling protesters rallies to punch people who'd pay their bills. As president, he played a clip of a guy saying the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. He said to the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. Trump spent his entire presidency inciting violence against Ilhan Omar, George Soros, multiple members of Congress, people of color, right? He left office, right, having incited an insurrection which you condemned. He told him to go fight like hell. He said Mark Milley should be executed, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. What's this got to do with my question? He mocked Paul Pelosi. I'm getting to it. He mocked Paul Pelosi for being hammered in the head. He was wrong to do that. That was outrageous. To be executed. It's not about whether he was wrong, Piers. I can give you dozens of actual violent quotes from Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar. You can't.
I think there's a fundamental problem with how people talk about Hitler. And that problem is, in my view, that they look at Hitler as a one-dimensional character. But Hitler had many other dimensions to him beyond how many millions of Jews that he killed. If you look at Hitler as a cartoon, right, in terms of lack of detail, right, very simplistic, very childish, then all he did is kill millions of Jews, right? There is no childhood, there is no teenage years, there is no young adult experiences, there's no family, there's no, becoming political, that journey and how that started. It's you pop out of the womb and you killed millions of Jews and that's it. If you think that way, that's simply, then again, it makes sense that anyone making Hitler comparisons would seem unhinged to you. To compare Donald Trump to Hitler would be unhinged. It's hyperbolic. It doesn't make any sense. It's Trump derangement syndrome. That is all correct if you view Hitler in a one-dimensional way. But that is not reality, right? As my good friend Ben Shapiro would say, facts doesn't care about your feelings, right? Facts don't care about your feelings. You may feel that Hitler only killed millions of Jews, but that is incorrect. Let me tell you something. What if there is Governor Newsom who runs for president in the future and he actually wins? Let's say that he does every single thing that Obama did. Same policies, same rhetoric, same style of governance. I mean, as much of stuff that Obama did, Newsom did, right? It's almost like we went back in time somehow, right? However, President Newsom didn't do any drone wars, right? And also, Governor Newsom didn't do any kids in cages, right? No drone wars, no kids in cages. But everything else, it's almost an exact replica of Obama, right? You look at President Newsom's term, his first term, look at Obama's first term, and it's almost identical, right? So people go around and start comparing Newsom to Obama, right? Newsom is the new Obama. Newsom is the new Obama, right? Now you have Newsom fans that didn't like Obama, that are offended and saying you guys are being hyperbolic. That doesn't make any sense. Newsom didn't do any drone wars. Newsom didn't do any drone wars. How are you going to compare him to Obama? Obama did all those drone wars. Obama had kids in cages. Newsom didn't do any of those things. It's unhinged to compare him. That's factually incorrect. They were very, very different people, right? And this person making this statement, of course, is not also having any kind of conversation about anything else that President Newsom did, right? They're only focused on these two things, right? That Obama did and Newsom didn't do. And since that doesn't match, and again, when you look at it one-dimensional, if Obama, in terms of his entire existence is just those two things, then it is ridiculous to compare someone else to him who hasn't done those two things, right? But Obama did many other things, right? Just like Hitler did many other things. There was a pattern to how he entered politics. There is a pattern to the style of his rhetoric. There's a pattern to how he governed and the types of things that he did before killing the millions of Jews, right? Now, herein comes the problem, right? The problem of people acting as if you can't compare anyone to Hitler unless they kill millions of Jews or millions of people, right? Here's the problem with that. Again, Hitler didn't just come out of the womb killing people, right? There was a process. If there was someone else before Hitler who was just as evil as Hitler, right? So again, there was a Hitler before Hitler, right? And when Hitler starts to become known, right? Certain people recognize that Hitler is taking a similar path to this other person, right? This other person, in the end, ended up killing a whole bunch of people. But young Hitler hasn't killed anyone yet, right? He's just using certain rhetoric that sort of reminds people of this previous Hitler. Now, I think making that comparison very, very early, say when Hitler's like a teenager or something like that, I think that's a little bit too early to be doing so. But let's say when he starts getting into politics and he starts using certain rhetoric, right? And at that point in time, people recognize parallels between this previous Hitler, that they sort of had a similar origin story. They sort of got into politics in a similar way. Their rhetoric seems to be similar. Not that they're saying exact same words, but fundamentally similar styles, right? So people start making comparisons and saying Hitler, let's say the original person is, let's ignore actual history and timelines. Let's say Mussolini was the guy, right? Let's say Mussolini had a similar origin story. So people keep comparing Hitler to Mussolini, right? Before he killed anyone, right? So early Hitler, just getting into politics, hasn't killed anyone, hasn't done anything violent yet, anything that is really crazy, crazy stuff yet. Just really aggressive rhetoric. He's very passionate about, how his style, but a lot of the similarity to Mussolini. Again, I'm not saying the actual Mussolini, and I probably shouldn't use that name. Actually, I don't want to confuse people. Let's say there was a guy called Monk, for lack of a better name. Some leader called Monk that in the end killed a bunch of people, who had a similar origin story to Hitler. And people start making these comparisons early in Hitler's political career. Now go back in time and think about yourself looking at those people and getting upset and saying, how dare you compare Hitler to Monk? Hitler hasn't killed millions of people, right? Knowing what you know now, right? They wouldn't have known that at that time, right? But knowing what you know now, the fact that that's the guy that will eventually kill millions of people, but they wouldn't have known it then. They're just noticing a comparison. You're behaving in a similar way to this other guy who in the end did this crazy thing. You haven't done a crazy thing yet, but there's a lot of parallels between your origin story, right? So people start comparing Hitler to Monk. And people keep pushing back, and that's really aggressive rhetoric. And if you keep calling Hitler Monk, then maybe someone tries to kill him, because if Hitler is Monk, right, and Monk killed all these millions of people, you're saying that Hitler's going to kill millions of people, right? So that would justify someone potentially killing Hitler, right? Can you imagine that? Your rhetoric could actually lead to someone trying to assassinate Hitler, assuming that, or because you're comparing him to this other person, right? So let's continue with this thought experiment, right? As time goes by and Hitler starts doing more and more things like this guy Monk did, right? Here's an important question for you to consider. Now, you have to remember, we're going back in time, so you don't know yet where things are going to go. You don't know yet where Hitler's going to go. You don't know that he's going to kill millions of people. All you know is that there's similar rhetoric between him and Monk, right? At what point in time would it be appropriate to start making the comparisons between Monk and Hitler, right? Because you can't wait until he starts killing millions of Jews or millions of people, period, right? You see the problem with that, right? You're going to wait until this person has taken over a political party and went after his opponents and put them in jail or whatever it is. I know already. Apologists are saying, that's what the Democrats are doing. That's what they've always been doing. Okay, fine, whatever. But we're not talking about Democrats. We're talking about Trump right now. Or actually Hitler, to be accurate. At what point in time would it be appropriate to start mentioning the fact that there are some similarities between someone present day versus someone who did some very bad things in the past? How far along do you think it's appropriate to go and just be silent and to see the similarities and to just don't say anything, just zip it, right? Don't say anything. You don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be hyperbolic, right? You don't want to encourage violence. So just ignore what you see, right? And just continue to wait for the killings to start. And then is that when you start saying something, right? I would think, food for thought, between 1918 and 1923, there was really no violence from Hitler. This represented his introduction to politics, or the beginnings of his political career. However, at the end of this time span began the violence, and the violence began with a coup. Prior to this event, a lot of things Hitler did are very similar to what Trump did. In fact, if Hitler's coup was unsuccessful and he was shut down by the government before the bloodshed, up until and including the coup attempt, it would be very similar to Donald Trump's timeline, right? The main difference is that the January 6th of Hitler was successful. If Trump was successful with January 6th and they had killed Mike Pence, they had killed Nancy Pelosi, and there was mass bloodshed, and they decided in that moment to seize power because they went, at a point of no return, and Trump stayed in office or something like that, I mean, essentially a successful coup, then at that point in time, Donald Trump's origin story would be a very close match with Hitler, minus some key details like Hitler actually served in the military. But think about when they had a State of the Union address with Joe Biden, and you have people in the Republican Party heckling. Think about all the paramilitary groups that you have that are supporting Trump and are in MAGA. This is similar to what Hitler had, right? When he did his coup, it was thousands of his supporters, right, that did it, supporters and sympathizers, and a lot of them were like paramilitary people. So imagine if the coup was unsuccessful and there wasn't major body count, maybe just 3 people died, right? A few got trampled and 1 person got shot, but that was it. The government was able to resist it, and the coup was a failure, right? If that had happened and you went back in time and you were there, and people started raising alarms about Hitler and calling what he did an insurrection, and imagine people pushing back and saying, how do you call it an insurrection? They didn't have any weapons. No one really died except for that 1 person that got shot, right? They didn't kill the vice president. They didn't kill the second most powerful person in the other party. Imagine you pushing back and saying that coup was not a coup because Hitler failed, right? And people keep raising alarms after the coup attempt and saying this guy's dangerous. And people saying, what are you talking about? And they'd make comparisons to some previous person, right? But because, unlike Hitler, they were not successful in executing a coup, we're supposed to pretend and ignore all the other similarities, right? First of all, history has a habit of repeating itself, right? We must learn from history so that we don't repeat the mistakes of our past. If we see someone, Trump or anyone else, maybe people think Biden is following a similar path, whoever it is, if we see a politician who is sharing similar rhetoric with someone like Hitler, I think we have a duty to say something about it. We have a duty to push back, and we should do it as quickly as possible. We don't want to be too quick, right? But we definitely don't want to wait till the last minute. We need to be raising an alarm way before the bodies start dropping, right? So, when you have someone who, well, let's go back to my Hitler and Monk comparison. Let's say that Hitler not only starts using similar rhetoric, but starts literally quoting things that Monk said. A guy who killed millions of people. Hitler literally quoting the same exact words. We find out from Hitler's ex-wife that Hitler had a book written by Monk that he kept. We hear from people close to Hitler that say that Hitler loved Monk or said things positive about Monk. So not only do we have a similar pattern of behavior, similar rhetoric, similar political styles, but now we're seeing details from people that know this person that are saying that beyond just similarities, they're saying direct link and comparison. This person had books written by the person they're acting like. They've said positive things about the person that they're acting like, right? At what point in time would it be appropriate to start verbalizing the similarities, especially considering the stakes? We had a Hitler before. We're probably going to have another one in the future. Some would say we actually have had one already in the future in terms of body count. But regardless, we had a Hitler before. We're going to have one again. Might not be the United States, might not be Germany, but there's probably going to be another Hitler in the future. How long do you wait before you start raising alarms when you see someone behaving like that? Do we not have a duty as society to do everything we can to prevent something like what happened with the Nazis again? Is that not our moral duty to prevent that from happening? And if we see anyone that is sharing similar rhetoric, literally quoting words from Hitler, do we not have a duty to be very aggressive in calling that out and pushing back? Because we cannot allow what happened before to happen again, right? So to pretend like Hitler is only a person who killed millions of people, as if he didn't have a life before that, as if there aren't other things to him, as if someone can't follow in a lot of Hitler's path, but maybe not go all the way to the extreme of killing millions of people, but still do a lot of destruction, a lot of devastating things, but maybe they don't do that because the person is not a literal clone of Hitler, right? If there is another Hitler in the future, they're not going to most likely be a clone of Hitler. There's just going to be certain commonality in terms of their behavior and things that they do. But there's definitely going to be things that they would do that Hitler didn't do. They might do things worse, or they might not go as far. But the bottom line is, anyone showing signs of heading in that direction, I would think should be called out. And I think the idea of saying, you can't use this word, this name, you cannot make comparisons to anyone to this because, we don't have the critical thinking skills to be able to recognize that Hitler is not one-dimensional, I think is absurd. Because if that's what we're going to do, that means we are definitely going to allow another Hitler to come to pass. Because the way people are talking right now about you shouldn't be calling people Hitler, right? That behavior would allow for another Hitler, right? Because let's just say there's an actual person. Forget about Trump. Let's say that Governor Newsom, he's the guy. Slick back. No one saw it coming, right? But he's the one who's actually going to kill 20 million people. And he starts acting like Hitler in different ways, but he hasn't killed anyone yet. He's using similar rhetoric. He's using similar styles, right? I mean, Trump goes to the extreme of like literally quoting Hitler, right? But let's say Newsom doesn't go that far. But the behavior is very similar. With the way things are being done in this country right now, we're not going to be allowed to say anything about Newsom, right? We're going to watch him do the same things Hitler did. We're going to watch him going after his political opponents and putting them in jail. And there's always an explanation, or whatever it is, right? We're going to watch a lot of the same things, a lot of the same strategy, same rhetoric. We're going to watch his followers behaving just like Hitler's followers, right? And anyone that wants to raise an alarm, oh, no, how are you going to compare Hitler? Did Newsom kill millions of people? Oh, no, right? And by the time that things get so bad that even the people who are pushing back are like, well, you know what, I think actually, he is actually kind of acting like Hitler. By that time, Governor Newsom, President Newsom at that time, or Emperor Newsom, has accumulated so much power, he's already broken down so many of our guardrails that he's now unstoppable. So now, the people who were calling Newsom Hitler are being validated, and people who were saying, oh, you're being too extreme, feel like idiots, but it doesn't matter. We can't unite now and finally push back against Newsom, because he is now Emperor Newsom, and all of the things that would have stopped him from doing what he's doing, he already dismantled him, and we sat by and allowed it to happen because we don't allow people to make comparisons to Hitler, right? So therefore, what that means is if we don't allow for comparisons to Hitler, that means that we do allow for a future Hitler, right? How can we stop another Hitler from becoming a thing if someone can have many similarities, literally quote from Hitler, and we're not allowed to push back? We're not allowed to factually state that this person is behaving in a similar manner to a person such as Hitler. Is Trump the new Hitler? Well, of course, it's too early to say that. Is he behaving like he could be one in the future? Let's just say I could see that. Whether it becomes the truth or not, I can't see the future. What I can see is the past. What I can see is what was the past is now the present in Donald Trump. He certainly hasn't done all the things Hitler has done. He certainly has a ways to go before he gets anywhere near there. But he seems to be heading in that direction. And I'm not afraid to raise an alarm now. I'm not going to wait for Trump to go even further before I say something. Because I respect the damage that Hitler did, right? I don't just look at it as, it's just something in the books. The suffering, the human suffering, the lives that were lost. And as a human being, I'm going to do what I can to prevent that from happening again. And if that means making Hitler comparisons, then so be it. I would rather be wrong, right, than to sit by idly and watch history repeat itself. Just like how a lot of conservatives in this country look at the past of communist leaders and they see comparisons in what Democrats are doing now. People on the left would disagree. Regardless, the point is, conservatives see behaviors from the past of communists and socialists. And they see destruction that came as a result of. They match these things, rightfully or wrongfully, with Democrats. They're not afraid to make those comparisons. They're not afraid to call Democrats communists way before they go anywhere near communism, right? The Democrats haven't done the communism version of killing 12 million people, meaning the worst of communism that the conservatives are afraid of. The Democrats have not gotten to that level yet. But the conservatives apparently feel a moral obligation to push back and raise an alarm now, before things get to that point, before we turn into a woke Marxist, whatever, right? Green New Deal, right? They look at the failure and the dangers of these things in the past in their minds, make a comparison, they push back. So I think the rest of us should do the same. If we honestly and genuinely see similarities in Newsom's behavior, Biden's behavior, Trump's behavior, that in any way is reminding us of Hitler in any significant way, I think we have a duty, a moral obligation to speak up. And this is the United States of America, the land of the free, where we have the freedom to speak. And we should not be afraid to say things that are controversial. Be mindful in your words, but you should be able to speak freely, right? I'm not going to go around saying, I think Newsom is going to be the next Hitler. I really hope somebody takes him out. Or Newsom deserves to die. He's going to be Hitler, right? So we do want to be mindful of what we say and how we say it. But if Newsom starts behaving like Hitler, we should absolutely start commenting and having a dialogue about that. We should not be waiting until the bodies start dropping to say, I was thinking that he was kind of behaving like Hitler, but I didn't want to say anything too extreme. But now that the bodies are dropping, hey guys, because by then it might be too late. This is Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Trump is not the new Hitler, but one day he very well might be. And since it's the new Hitler, it might not involve killing millions of people, but might be very brutal. When is the right time to start raising an alarm? I would say very soon, if not already.